Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is after free agency. It is basketball rewind, and I am joined by Beyond the Locker Room. Coach couldn't join us today at this time, but he will be there in the future, so people don't worry. So first and foremost, I always ask you this, but how are you doing?
I am feeling fantastic, boy. It's been a great 48 hours, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. What could have possibly happened?
Wow, bro. We might get into it, but all of a sudden we have an actual professional roster for the Toronto Raptors. I'm looking forward to seeing this coming season.
That's right. So people, today on this episode, I'm gonna actually start doing this a little bit more, but giving people a bit of a preview. So, we're probably gonna be talking about the free agency moves of the Raptors thus far, the media reception. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Dame, like silly rumors or whatever, sure. And then we're also gonna talk about what comes next, and what moves need to happen. Without going into the depths of like creating frameworks for trades or anything like that. So, with that being said, I would like to cover free agency from Masai's point of view, and I'm not into the whole grading thing, but I think it was very, very interesting. I think if you look at it, a lot of people, including it seems like the Raptors a little bit from the initial moves, uh, were a little bit shocked. Surprisingly, I wasn't shocked, but they were a little bit shocked that Fred VanVleet did not come back. So I think we should probably talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Just a little bit. Um, quote 50, just a little bit. I think I think we talked offline before this happened, and as you mentioned, you brought up the Maya Angelou quote, which is the perfect quote for this whole situation. When someone tells you who you are the first time, believe it.
Right.
Fred has been trying to tell you folks, he's been trying to tell you on audio, been trying to tell you in podcasts. He even did a documentary with from his last free, what he's about. He was more than willing to go to Detroit, folks. Detroit. Okay. I'm a Pistons fan. I grew up as a Pistons fan. Believe me, last time I checked, ain't looking pretty right now in Motown. He was willing to go to Detroit. He was willing to go to New York and Gotham. And that was the last time 3 years ago or so. And you all didn't want to believe what was going on. If a man's mantra is bet on yourself, which is the most individualistic mantra you could ever have, why are you surprised in this case that he is left to go to greener pastures in this case?
That he's not team first.
That's not team first.
Did you see his goodbye, by the way? Or the only. I was that. Ah. you, it was the dice. So he just he quote tweeted himself saying "bet on yourself," and he said the dice, and I think he said again. Peace.
Yes, I did see the dice. We need not say more.
Yes.
So it seems like we on here, as well as I believe, Coach to a lesser extent, because Coach still thought he might come
Yeah,
back. But
yeah, you were all skipping and stuff. And
yeah,
Coach has to say, "Well, what if he comes back?"
yeah, never doubted that he's coming back. Never. And the thing is, like, maybe we'll get into this now, but watching the reaction, but it's been fascinating. Before we get to the Masai stuff, the reaction to this has been absolutely fascinating. I've never seen a sports media pretty much cry in have their tears in this case and crying in their pillow as much as this Toronto media has. I mean, if you had any doubt in this case here, who were they most friendly to in this case when they were writing stories? It left no doubt now watching what's played out here in the last 48 hours. You would swear in this case here, LeBron James or Michael Jordan has walked out the building. And
Yes,
what are
the
we to
decision
do?
2.0 just happened.
Right. What are we going to do, folks? I don't know. Oh my
Like it
God.
was literally like Kawhi just left, but like we didn't do this with Kawhi.
Oh, it's the best part.
Like what are we doing here?
Right. Like we sit here, I'm sitting here going like, we've never done this for any player. At least the Toronto media has.
Never. I think people are freaking out about this season, and I'm like, I'm not saying that we're better like in terms of a talent right now today as currently constructed without Fred, but what I'm saying is that like Fred and what he brought to the team is something that you can find replacements for.
And that's the point right there, because that is the issue for day one. This player, Fred VanVleet, God bless him, his family. Glad he got the bag. Enjoy your family, enjoy yourself, and do whatever you can for your hometown. That's great stuff. But the issue is, Fred had an oversized role with this organization. way too oversized for the type of what he brought to this team. And that's the point, because it's quite clear and apparent that the management team will get, I'll deal with the media first. They saw the same thing as the management team saw. They saw him as some type of franchise, pillar in this case here, which I'm shaking my head like, for Masai to be running down to Los Angeles at the 11th hour, to give him a 4-year deal. Are you crazy?
That was wild, and like at that point, it was like, okay, come on, like what are we doing? Like it's like
Right.
3 hours before the thing, and you're still begging.
Right.
Like at this point, you should know whether or not like things are going to work out. You should, if you are Masai Ujiri and you are that confident and you are supposedly, this is not me hating on Masai. I'm just giving my own opinion. But if you are like, I'm Masai Ujiri, I won a championship and all that kind of stuff, like Pat Riley with the rings. Pat Riley ain't chasing after nobody. Okay.
I even chase after LeBron James.
No, did
Okay.
not. Remember that, people. Like
Okay.
say that one more time, please.
Pat Riley did not chase after LeBron James. He put his position on why Miami was the best offer. He asked Dwayne Wade to speak to him if he could, and he left it there. Now, obviously, his press conference, he played that card too. Probably
Yep,
did it,
of course.
but he wasn't running down he wasn't running to wherever LeBron was at the time to say, "Please come back."
I
Like
think
this.
the only thing that would have been more humiliating would have been like the Mark Cuban where you're locking him in the room and that
Right,
sort of
DeAndre Jordan.
thing. Like, please don't leave.
Right.
Like
Right, and we've seen
so.
Dallas' free agent history in the Cuban era. It's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
yeah, we see how they work the Brunson deal. Yeah, real smooth there, guys. But yeah,
very, very.
look, I'm looking here. I'm sitting here going like, think about this. Let's move it back close to the home.
Yep.
When Lowry was in the same position, not when he went to Miami, the previous time, about
Yeah,
the
he wanted
same.
to go to the Spurs.
He wanted to go to Spurs. There was no last minute thing like, oh my gosh, let's head to Philadelphia and see if we can get nothing.
And the
And
thing is that they didn't realize that in this free agency market, which was different than the Lowry one, that like sure, they basically a lot of people miscalculated how much Fred would get. Okay, and that's really what it comes down to, is they thought that he wouldn't get that bag and that we could afford to re-sign him. And then when it got close, people were saying essentially that in this team, as it was currently constructed before, that we should essentially take off pieces from our bench, our depth, to make it work to bring him back. I don't understand that logic. Then you heard people talking crazy saying, well, I think he should take 3 years, 90 over 80 million, which he got way more than that, essentially to stay. It's like because he gets a whole bunch of years of security, and I'm like, listen, I didn't go to school, I didn't study the subject that I studied to make that future evaluation and agree with that. It is a bad evaluation. I will be nice today, but it is a bad evaluation. You take the money and you run. There's a TV deal, people, that's coming up. Even unless Samson Folk was on this, he said it himself. Unless Fred drops off in terms of production so bad that to use your terms, he fossilizes in the next 2 years and becomes essentially like a bum, which I don't think Fred is a bum, by the way. He is a very good player, so people don't think I'm hating Fred. It's just the style wise. But in 2 years, at worst he's a mid-level exception. He still made the money.
Exactly. And here's the thing. We sat there Friday afternoon. We were on the call. When that news came about that Masai and Bobby are running down to Los Angeles, we said at the time we could see what's happening.
I said it is done. I said at this point, and you said the same thing. It was like at this point, all of the free agents, when it got to 6, and
Yep.
all of the people re-signed, and you're waiting for Fred. You're like, really? I'm pretty sure we know the answer because it doesn't take that long. We all know that these deals get worked out well before, right?
Exactly.
So it's usually not typically like, and we also know, and we've seen this in terms of how the speed at which this is moving in terms of free agency, that Fred is not the type of guy to wait. He actually waited last free agency, I think, just because there wasn't really the market for him, and I think he learned his lesson, and he was willing to use a little bit of leverage, but he didn't have 48 hours.
No. And I think the other thing that played out is that he and Clutch played the Raptors like a fiddle, because when it's all said and done, he wasn't. Houston initially wasn't offering that third year.
Nope.
And lo and behold, once the news came out about Raptors giving a fourth year, well, a competitive offer the other way said a third year. Now, true, it is a player option, but that's still 3 years when it's all of a sudden there's a possibility. And in this,
He is the second highest paid guard in the league. The person in front of him is Stephen Curry.
right, exactly.
He
All
is
these guys.
higher paid than Siakam. He is higher paid than Luka. He is higher paid than, funny enough, Kyrie Irving.
Keep going down the list. It's unbelievable. And Houston's betting that in this case is that, to your point, when the new TV deal kicks in, and he's now in his third year or the second year when this TV deal kicks in, that's going to look like a nothing deal. It's going to look almost normal at that point. And they're going to say, so be it. So they're just getting in front of what's going to happen in about a year or two's time. I'm just sitting here shaking my head like, what are we doing? And this goes to the point now to talk about Masai and Bobby in this front office. The question you have to ask yourself a little bit, and I said before to some of the guys on Spaces yesterday, I really question. I question the front office of how they deem what is, how they appraise talent, because for them to actually think that 4 years would be justified for a player like Fred, who in this case is showing chronic injuries pretty much now, who's shot. And by the way, for you guys out there in this case, in Twitter land, in this case, want to talk about, as well as some of you guys in the media, talking about, oh my gosh, where are we going to find shooting from? Let's keep it real here. He shot 34% last year, okay?
On extremely high volume, and I get it. You need, in the last year's offense, you needed a volume shooter, but like ideally, you can do shots that are maybe not as that. There's things that you can do to get you easier shots, but also, I mean, like anything from the inside, because he wasn't a threat. He wasn't a threat from. He improved from the mid range, so I will give him that for sure. He improved at his finishing by the rim. It was still bad. That is the reality. Is he was not a 3-level scorer, and they are treating him like he is a 3-level scorer.
Right. So like I'm sitting here going like, what are we doing here? And I was like, Raptor fans.
Man,
Raptor,
people are really not going to like me after this gets posted.
I don't know. I'm trying to give them a dose of reality of what the player actually is versus what they think the player is. Right now, we're dealing with the man versus the myth, right? And there's too much myth making right now going on between the Raptors media and the Raptors fandom versus what is actually the man's game.
Now, I'll give some counterpoints. I do think that Fred is a very, very, very good player. Okay, I've said it before. I keep saying it to people. I say it in Spaces. I say it all over the place. I think he's a really good player. I think that the Raptors lost a really good player. So I'm not saying that, but I think in terms of the future, this means something completely different. I mean, people were worrying about having a capped out team, and this allows you to, as we've seen moving into the other moves that were made, I think we've seen that we can actually build a halfway decent bench now without having to repay or pay Fred. And like that was the first domino. Before we go into that though, I will say one thing just to keep it on the Fred thing. What disappointed me is not so much the deadline move. Sure, there's an argument for that. But it was really the fact that, okay, when this guy's showing signs of he's kind of using you for leverage, they still had Gabe Vincent and other guys. I'm not saying that it has to be Gabe Vincent. I'm not saying that that is equivalent to Fred, but I'm saying, and I have nothing wrong. I actually think that Schroder fits what they want to do pretty well, except that he has trouble finishing at the rim, but he we'll see what happens. But there were other guys for slightly cheaper than what we paid for Schroder that were available that might have even fit better. And it feels like we got Schroder because he was the best guy left at that point after the Fred news, and we panicked. That is why I was like, I don't think Masai had mystical magic going this time. Okay, you were saying.
No, but this plays into what I was going to mention, the point from the standpoint of like, okay, will we even get anything in the S&T? Right now it looks very unlikely in this case here.
Dude, we're not even getting a trade exception at this point, unless I mean, Twitter's broken at this point, people. But maybe Woj tweeted out and we got that. But as far as I know, we didn't even get a trade exception.
No,
Fred could have even pushed. Say, hey, if Fred was so loyal to us that people think, it's like, then you could have at least give Lowry some credit. Is Lowry helped facilitate, hey, you guys did right by me, so I'm going to do right by you. And, at some point he's like, I'm not going to, do that right. But hey, at the very least, we got something. We got nothing out of it, people.
Nothing.
Nothing.
So as I said on Twitter in this case here about a couple hours ago, here's from the championship team, the guys that have left in this case, that have gone out. Gasol, Ibaka, Powell, Lowry, Fred. Am I missing anybody of the major contributors? I think that's, of course, Kawhi. There we go. Out the door. That's 6 guys. Here's who's come back based on those 6 guys. Precious, GTJ, Thad Young, based off of Goran Dragic. That's what you have, guys. This is the great mystique and the great front office that's supposed to be the one of the smartest in the league. That's what you gotten back from all those guys leaving.
And the truth of the matter is that this is not their best performance, and it was a little bit humiliating. Now, with that being, and it's not just me that's saying this. It's, if you're listening to the big time podcast who used to really shout his praises, Masai and co, even they are saying, "What the heck are the Raptors doing?" So now, here's the good people. Here's the positive thing: is there's a little glimmer of hope. I don't really think that this is as dire as some people say, and I know this is the other thing, is that the media, it's initially going, well, let's do a rebuild. Then it's like, well, hold on. First of all, we just raised ticket prices, okay? So they ain't doing a rebuild, and if they're doing a rebuild, a lot of people are going to be very upset because they just paid for season's tickets, much higher price than last year for a worse product. So keep in mind, people, you do have a media company that owns this, which means that they do care about the product to somewhat of an extent. So what's going to happen more than likely is I don't see Siakam going, but we should talk about the moves that they did make. And I did, after the Dennis Schroder, that's fine. It's fine. I'm not.
Can we go one by one with them? Because I think the shooter should be an interesting discussion.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So
fine. Yeah, because I give Dennis a little love here because I know right now you get ripped on. I'm sure there's gonna be a segment or a sect in this case in the Raptor fan that are gonna be all sour about him the moment he throws the ball out of bounds on a bad play next year. So let me not say too much about the Dennis. Dennis in this case is gonna provide, for the most part, similar stuff that Fred provided in some ways. Not the same volume, but the field goal percentage from 3 ain't that much different, really, when it's all said and done. A percentage off in this case here, or 2. And he's shown he can shoot better than that in previous years as well, too. Second thing is, you mentioned the finishing. Well, Fred was no great finisher either. So they're not much different there. Now, you're saying, well, what can he provide might be different? Well, he's pretty good at closing. That's one thing for sure. He ain't frightened the moment. That's one thing with Schroder. So you don't have to worry about that. He has a knack of hitting big shots when you least expect it. Second thing, he's a pretty damn good playmaker as well, too. So that's also something that's going to come into play as well. And the third part about it is he has shown throughout his career he is really good at manning a second unit when you're coming off the bench.
Well, actually, yeah, I'm looking at even just the field goal percentage. So if you look at how they shot from 2, I'm not going to look up the entirety of like their stuff, but the field goal percentage alone from 2, Fred shot 45%, 45.5% last year, and Schroeder, just so we have the stats, shot 46%. So he actually shot better. So people who are freaking out about his finishing, it's like, to your point, yeah, Fred was not the best finisher. His effective field goal is better because he shot threes at a slightly higher volume.
Right.
So yeah,
34 to 32%. Right.
Yep.
So what's all said and done, it's essentially the same guy, but in this case for less money. And most importantly, he knows his role, the quote, the Rock. He knows his role, which is probably the most important thing that we had to have happen. Role definition. In this case, to find out who in this case is on the right thing when it comes to the totem poles. And in this case, you don't have to worry about a shooter. He's going to know who to get the ball to in this case in certain circumstances. And for that alone, that will make this offense run smoother in this case from that standpoint alone. So I am looking forward to it. I think Schroder is exactly what we're talking about, getting a guy that can man the second unit and kind of organize this group and also could play with the starters when necessary. I think that is so from that standpoint, you're right. Gabe Vincent perhaps could have been a better option because on the catch and shoot stuff, I love that for Vincent. I think also too, can't remember who's the other guard that was in there. When
Javon Carter, I think
Carter
he
was
would
a
have been a better. Like we're just talking about a higher upside in terms of the 3-point shooting and stuff
3-point
like
shooting,
that.
which is great. But I think this leads into the conversation of maybe the next guy you might want to bring into discussion.
Yeah, so we're not going to do a full breakdown today, people, because I want to wait for Coach, because Coach is, Coach is our guy. But we can talk about it a little bit, and they did make so. Schroder felt like a panicked move. It's not the worst panic move, but it was a bit of a panic move. Because the thing is that if you went and got either, say it was Schroder, but you got him early, it probably would have taken some leverage away from Fred, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not just here, and then you could say, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll move heaven and earth to keep you, but we just didn't want to get um, you know, caught with our pants down, right? Like we did basically.
Rude.
Um, and this goes back to my other thing is like even if you want to keep him at the deadline, fine. But then they should. I've been. How long have I been asking for a backup offensive initiator? I've been asking for it for the longest time, and it's like just go get it. Go get it, people.
Right.
And it's like if you had that, even that would have helped. You know,
Well, to your point, they I think they believe they let Banton out of his deal to kind of probably open up some more space for him in this case here, maybe. So I don't know if Banton's coming back for all you Banton fans, for all you Rexdale homies. I don't know what's gonna happen because like that might not be the case. We'll see. But right
yeah.
now, it's up in the air at the moment, and so you gave away a young piece who you seem to be very interested in. When I heard the Masai press conference, you mentioned him like 3 times, and then you let him go in this case here, so you get Fred back, and now Fred's gone, and now Banton getting discussed with having talks with the Celtics.
Not a good look. Not a good look, people. And it's funny because everyone thought it was going to be the Spurs, but
Yeah,
is your everyone's favorite American team.
it
Uh,
still might be, and we still got time.
yeah, so if Banton is still out there, I think there's a chance that we might get him. But like, yeah, it's not a good look, and it might even rub him the wrong way, to be honest, because it's like how do you I thought you guys liked me. You
The
met
guy was
you.
working out your gym like 2 days ago.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's like, yo, man, you gotta get up on out of here. So listen, I know that some of y'all love Fred, and like I'm not here to diss Fred. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I think I agree that the vitriol towards him at times has been pretty egregious. And people who are saying anything about his family, you got to stop that kind of stuff. There's levels of nastiness that you don't have to do. Not my favorite player, but he's not a bad player at all. And I also think congrats to him. I think before we go any further, I'll say my biggest winner of free agency has been Clutch. And when I'm done schooling, I'm gonna hire them. I'm not in the same industry, but I'm gonna hire them. They're gonna have a new wing to their a new division, and they're negotiating for me.
Play, man. And when Fred made that decision in the middle of the season, it was he bet on Clutch in this case here, and they delivered for him, man. So good for him and his family. And as I said before, I'll be checking in on the Houston Rockets to see what how this experiment works out with some of the other moves they made as well too. Because I think that overall they're going to be a very fascinating team to watch. So
Absolutely. The Jalen. Is it Jade?
Jalen's the one that we have.
Jalen. Sorry. So we were connected to him in rumors back around the deadline, and so they got their guy, and they didn't have to wait 10 years like they did with that Young to get him, which is great, right? So go get your guy, go get your guy in free agency. We paid him a little bit higher than he probably would have gotten otherwise, but that's fine. It's the biannual exception, so it's 2 years. For it ends up being 9.3 million approximately. It's a good price,
What a
right?
great
It's a
deal.
very great deal. He has a 7 foot wingspan. He shoots the ball 40%. He makes really good high upside, like smart. Some people would say high IQ. I don't like using that, but he's a very situationally aware guy on both ends of the ball. He's a two-way guy. He's young, very young. I don't have his age in front of me, but he's relatively, yeah, 23, 24. So he fits right into exactly what you're looking for, both for now as well as for the future. And guess what? You don't have to teach him how to play from scratch. It's nice. It's nice to not have to have another project. And so
Well,
I think it shows it was this was more of a proactive move. You were gonna say.
No, I totally agree with you. And for folks out here, this is what Vision 6'9" should look like.
Yeah, you have a couple people that can actually shoot and like break the
Yeah,
ball down a little bit.
yeah, different skill sets, that can mix and match with the guys you have. Like, what a concept! Them having the same, having clones in this case
Yes.
for the most part. Like, this is what it should look like. Yeah, I won't get too much into him because I mean that's coach's man right there, man. I give him all the flowers to go with that, man. Because man, he was like he's a soothsayer on that one, man. He put down the
Yes.
list,
He's been
and
talking
before
about him for a couple months now.
I
It's
announced
like
my,
me and Nikhil Alexander Walker is
yeah, I'm gonna give him all the flowers and let him enjoy that when we discuss that. I'll leave that him. But once again, I think these two moves just show for all these folks who hear him and Han about, oh, Masai has this issue, and it's the management, and it's upstairs won't let him do any
yeah,
of the work.
won't
No,
let it won't let him
no.
make money. Well,
Literally, he changed the entire bench in 1 week. He picked a draft pick that could shoot, and you got two guys in this case within 24 hours, and all of a sudden our bench looks completely different.
so
It's not
you remember what I said, and I think that this is happening, and we're seeing it real time, and so it'll be curious to see what happens next. But I said that Fred leaving will force their hand along with the CBA because you can't just like bring the band back together and not do anything else.
right.
And this forced some hard decisions, and hard decisions are being made, and and I think it's good. In terms of our bench, it's like I'm not trying to diss the man, Joe Weezy. Maybe he makes the 15th spot, but at the same time, it's like when if you ask people and they're being honest and they're not just saying, oh, I like every single guy that comes on the Raptors. Oh, go lucky, right? At some point, you have to say, okay, would you rather have, Joe Wieskamp or Jalen McDaniels? And most people who actually watch basketball beyond the Raptors are going to probably say, you know what, given the choice, I'd rather take the 40% shooter that has a little bit more mileage under his belt and is still really young, and didn't just get cut by the Spurs. Maybe Joe Weezy makes it. I'm not saying that he won't, but just saying there are people that sometimes it's good to get a couple guys. This is a win.
Right. And just to go back, one thing about the Masai point in this case here, like I'm not saying in this case here, if folks think that way and think it's the front office, fine. But my point has always been that that's just an excuse because in this case here, he could have done this last year, he could have done this the year before. This is the best roster right now currently constructed we've had in 3 years. You have to go out to the 2020 year to have a better team than this team
It's
on paper.
about making. So I think what we're describing is it's you to course correct. You don't necessarily have to make a big swing move, but it's about the small moves.
Right.
It's about doing little steps. Like it's for those of you as Blue Jays season, of course. So instead of always going for the home run, just get on base, right,
Yep.
and go and take it from there, and one next step, and then next step.
Hit
Um,
the
a good example of what we could have done last year, just based on the price. Derek White. Derek White went for what, a couple seconds, and that's about it. Like, there's no reason that we couldn't have gotten Derek White.
There's
So,
a guy right now that's out there right now we could have got last year, and hopefully we get this year. I'll just
Lonnie Walker.
yeah, yeah, that guy.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that
him too,
dude.
him
Yeah,
too. So I would welcome him definitely on this team. And right now we don't have a lot of tools, so we'd either have to create space to do it, or we would have to do a minimum. But he's still out there, and last time I checked, there's space is dwindling on the market. So there's still a
rumor
chance.
is we're talking to him. So I mean, I hear
Oh,
rumors.
oh, you heard rumors?
I saw something just before we came on that is us in Philadelphia talking to him. So we'll
Oh,
see.
interesting. Because last time
Um,
I heard, we were still talking to Terrence Davis and trying to do that, run
yeah,
that train back again.
I don't think so. I mean, I
It's
don't know
like,
what's up with the nostalgia thing going on with Masai. Like every ex Raptor we have to try to bring back. You ever heard rumors about Terrence Ross at one point? Like guys, let it go as in Frozen. Like move
people,
on.
I heard some people saying they wanted a Baca back, and I'm like, this dude has a bad back and his stuff.
I'm
He's on to his next cooking show. Like,
let's say Ibaka look to coach the team, like as an assistant. Like, are you serious?
like, oh, it's only 5 minutes game. We can teach Coloco stuff. It's like we have Pirtle, okay? Like,
Exactly. But
I know, I'm not saying Pirtle was like the best option, but
yeah,
he's not a bad option. He learned from Tim Duncan, and at this point, I'd rather the dude with the good back than the dude with the bad back.
so
You were
yeah,
saying,
yeah, I just wanted to go and give you if you could give us a quick spot check of where we are from a roster standpoint, how many guys we have right now, based on right now where we at right now.
Right. So I'm gonna I can't look it up on Twitter.
No, no, I think I can look
I know
on
I'm just teasing, but I think we're at 14 guys
14 guys.
right now. Last time I checked.
So we have the starting lineup. I mean GTJ in the starting lineup, and then we have the two guys we just picked up, 7, Grady 8, Precious and Boucher 10. We have, of course,
Sorry, I should say 14 guaranteed
guaranteed.
contracts.
Let's say Flynn 11. 12 will be Noel.
Otto,
Otto 13. Who's the fourth guy for? Oh, Joe Wieskamp, right?
Joe Wieskamp, and did you say Flynn?
Yeah. So that's the
Okay.
14 right there. So there's
Yeah.
2 spots still available. So one of them you would think in this case, based on how they've been going, you would try to get back Banton perhaps. So that
Could be
might be
Banton.
one spot back. And then we have the 15th elusive spot, which I hope will be Mr. Walker. In this case,
Wait,
and you,
which Walker?
Lonnie in this case.
Lonnie Walker. Okay, right. I'm still on Nikhil. I was gonna say Nikhil's
No,
gone.
no,
Nikhil's
no.
gone.
Lonnie Walker could be that 16th or 15th guy. Him Banton
Yes.
potentially.
Yes.
If that is the case, let's move Walker out. I mean, I think Banton's a realistic possibility, but let's say let's assume for the sake of argument, let's assume those 2 guys do come on the team. Let's have fun.
Mhm.
Do you think the balance? You think the roster is balanced well enough, or maybe if one of those 2 open spots should go to a big? Because I'm leaning that direction.
Um, I think I understand why you want a big, but if you get a big, okay, here's the problem. You have 2 guys on this roster that I don't know how you get minutes for, because I think Jalen McDaniels will get minutes at the backup 3.
Mm.
Between him and Otto, you don't expect Otto to really play that many. Not that he's not good. It's just like, you're saving him. He's the 16 game player, right? Whereas you can kind of see what you have with the young guy leading up to that 16 games. If we even get 16 games. But I think in terms of the other guys, you have to probably have one of those guys, and who I'm referring to is Precious and Boucher. One of them will have to get some small minutes at the center spot. Might be Precious. But then again, it's like he's not going to get 15 minutes at the center spot because you already have Koloko who needs 15, 20 minutes at the center spot because Jakob is foul prone and he just doesn't play 30 minutes. He's just too foul prone. So that backup forward spot is very interesting, because it's things get a little cramped. So I would actually go for either a higher end guard if they can. That's just me personally, and then say they keep Precious is who I'm assuming.
Would Lonnie Walker fit that bill, or you want higher than that?
I would like higher. If it's me, I would go. Not that there's anything wrong with Lonnie Walker, but I would try to get a high end point guard prospect if possible. Who
The only way that's happening is in a trade.
I mean, I
That's
just said that Boucher is not going to be getting minutes for you. Right?
yeah, but Boucher, I don't think is enough to get you the prospect you're talking about,
He's
though.
probably not, and we can talk about frameworks for that later
Yes,
at another
keep it
time, people.
real
I don't
now.
want people freaking out and stuff like that. But my point is that that's what I think that we need, and that's what I think we should be looking at. And
Yeah,
that's not me trying to diss Barnes. I'm just saying, like, you say you go with Point Barnes or whatever, right? Like I don't know what he is. I think what he is he can initiate the offense, but that may not look like what people think like it will, and it may not look like how he thinks it should look like.
mm,
I think that there's ways to have him initiate the offense and be really successful at it, and it may not look like how he did it this year.
possibly. But yeah, I mean, right now this is on Scotty. Right now, when it's all said and done, like I mean, this roster
Absolutely.
overall, I think to your point, just to finish up the power forward situation, the
Mhm.
reason why I suggest that is, to your point, the foul trouble. I mean, injuries are so prevalent in the NBA nowadays. The other concern, and the third part is, I'm really trying to avoid having my small forwards play power forward if they don't have to,
From a
i.e.,
body standpoint, yeah, but is it okay if like say it's how we think it's going to be, where Thad's not there, and then it's Boucher is moved out, and so you Precious.
the
Are
other
you
way.
okay with Precious getting 5 minutes tonight at the 5?
at the 5.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
5 minutes.
5 minutes in a pinch if the scenario dictates it. Yeah, like
Okay.
like for example, if they're playing Embiid, for example, and you
Yeah.
want to go there, you don't want to put OG on them, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be the precious opportunity to play there.
Yeah, or say like Koloko and Jakob are in foul trouble. You know what I
Mm-hmm,
mean? Like,
for
so
sure.
that's what I mean. Like, I don't know because if you get another big, like a higher end big, it cuts into
True.
his minutes,
But if
Boucher
right,
or
but
Koloko's
I'm not
minutes.
sure if like Mo Bamba to me wouldn't consider to be a high end big.
No, no, but he's young enough that he may. That's what I guess that's what I'm concerned with is he might be young enough that he might still be wanting to have a shot at something.
Sure, yeah,
And
I hear that, but I mean, or you could go the journeyman guy, which I'm fine with too. You make
yes,
like a
so that's another option is you get a journeyman guy or someone from Europe or whatever, you get a third big, break in case of emergency. You get your equivalent of like essentially it's like this would be a great Kem Burch role.
yeah, right,
Honestly.
exactly. Yeah,
Though he's not with us anymore, but like yeah, I think that it would be perfect.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Something like that. There's some other names out there. I don't know if you want to even discuss that, but there's a few other names I'm surprised have not been signed yet. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but PJ Washington has not been signed yet, has he not?
No, he has not. He is so some of the free agents are still out
I'm
there, which is interesting.
Yeah, like I am shocked. Like you talk about a guy, if you really want to put some light a fire into Precious, sign him. Boucher's out the door, and Precious is wondering what's going on because that dude, you want to talk about a proper fit?
He'd be nice. It'd be tough to get him because they do have his restricted rights. So,
The RFA.
um, so I'll go. Well, let's just go through the names. Also we've been rumored to be still talking to, Malik Beasley as well. So that's interesting as well. That's what I heard. Which it'd be a decent, he could fit the roster from like a skill point standpoint. And this is the interesting thing is that like it always comes in free agency that the merry-go-round stops and then all of a sudden it's like wait a minute,
Right. I want to
I don't have a chair.
Yeah.
And then it's like you can have a chair but it might be a cheap chair. So
And I think that's why Schroder signed so quickly because he learned his lesson from last time.
oh yeah, yeah, no, no, no,
Parsley.
no. He's like, where's the dotted line sign? Done. Boom, on the plane. So Eric Gordon, you can tell me just yay or nay. Just as a quick thing. So yay or nay, Eric Gordon.
Nay.
Yeah, he's getting a little old, like 34 and a half. So yeah, Malik Beasley.
Yay.
Any interest in Will Barton?
Nay.
Knew you'd love that one. Chris, Christian Wood is still out there. I keep
Oh
saying to people,
gosh.
I'm like,
You know me
I
as a
have,
Mavericks fan. Nay, a hard nay.
yeah, I. He's been on a lot of teams very recently. That's what I'll
Nay.
just leave it at that. He's very very talented. I do not know where he ends up this year, but yeah. Kelly Oubre.
Nay.
Mobama we talked about. I know that there was interest from the Warriors. This would have been someone that I liked the last year. Dario Saric.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, we won't go
No,
all the
you're
way
right.
down, but there's some
No, I
interesting
think no,
names.
I think yay, yay. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so he can pass, he can shoot. He's healthier now, so yeah. There's Romeo Langford, which that's interesting actually.
Yeah, nay.
I'll just toss it out just because it's been it's somewhat topical, but Miles Bridges.
Nay. Hey, don't like anything else, but go ahead.
Coaches, man. I'll just guess coach isn't here, so you're gonna fill in for coach. But yeah, Mason Plumlee,
I like Plumlee, but not for this team.
not
Nay.
for this team. Yeah.
Okay.
Man from the Pistons, Dilo. I'm not good at pronouncing his name.
Yeah, Diallo, nay. A
Okay.
slight nay. Let's put it that way. Like either if there's nothing else there and he took him, sure. But
Okay. So
soft move.
to speed this process up, should I just ignore any any position that you want me to ignore?
You can ignore centers, I think, for the most part.
Centers and probably for the most part power forwards and So you're not interested in Torrey Craig, I'm also assuming. So then it's really just Kendrick Nunn, Kojo, who I saw a media member mention, so I'm good on that. Ish Smith, who's a good player, but he's
It's
getting
my
on
man
age.
Ish Smith, man. Always can find a job, man. God
Always,
bless him.
yeah.
God bless Ish
Um,
Smith.
Justice Winslow, and then Matisse Thybulle. Or did any of those names? I'm
None.
not even gonna talk
Let
about.
me, let me keep it. The two guys I think I would keep eye on. I think we already discussed it. Lonnie Walker and PJ Washington, if he's still out there. Those are two.
Yes,
And we can make
yeah.
trades to clear out space for those two dudes. I'm down with that.
There's also Javonte Green, and then finally there's also Io. Now again, you'd have to probably overpay a little bit for Io because he's a restricted free agent. So
I will do it.
you're not really interested. Okay, yeah.
No, no, no.
And then of course there's Delano Banton.
Well, if worst comes to worst, we pick up Banton back, and sure, he's a hometown guy, sure.
Yep.
And this team, I'm willing to have Banton on the team. On a team like this, I could deal with Banton.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that there are some names out there that are. Oh, right, and I forgot about Jeff Doughton, of course. So yeah. Although we have tendered his restricted free agent rights, so we do have rights on him. So keep that in mind. I think it is two-way rights, but still we do have rights on him. So I think he's probably going to get one of the remaining two-way spots. I know Noel is speaking for one, and I think Doughton is, he has a home for the other one. I think we sign someone else for the other one as well.
Yeah, the kid there, Dez, I can't remember his last name. He's Arizona State guard, about
Yep.
6'6". So I mean, I'm curious to watch him in summer league as well too. I mean, so the Banton discussion might get very interesting if he's still out there and this kid's playing the summer league. So
Yes, there's also I mean I mentioned it before, but there's Terrence Davis as well. My issue with Terrence Davis, for getting let's just even ignore the off court potential issues from before, is just like with him, like I don't think that he improved on with people. Like people were acting like he was playing a huge role in Sacramento, and they needed a guard to really do stuff, and he was not getting like 10 minutes even in
no,
that
but his
series.
on-ball defense wasn't too shabby. I'll give him that.
Yes, is always his defense has always been decent.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I find that the news story more interesting of like what type of player the Raptors are looking for. So they are aware of the on-ball defense issue at the point of attack. So that's what it says to me. Now, would it be Terrence Davis was not? Maybe not, probably, but they do. I think they think Banton could potentially be that. So that type of player they're still looking for. Can Lonnie Walker be that type of player? Lonnie Walker's pretty decent, like I don't think I think he's a serviceable defender. I don't think you need to be a ball hawk in this case here. I think they have enough around that they could cover off the deficiencies that they have that at the on ball position. But I don't think they're any worse than they were last year. If anything, I think they're better now.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think we've kind of yeah, like I think we've covered like most of the potential free agents. I think the final thing is that yeah, I mean we also covered Precious and Boucher and how that's like a challenge. The one thing that we talked about is that Masai started to do these moves that aren't home runs. So we might as well end it off by talking about the one home run that has been like rumored and like a bunch of people have talked about, which is going for Dame. And so, as like, if you can't tell people about my energy, yeah, it is Dame time. I'm not really high on this move, but you can tell me your thoughts. I think that this is a waste of time, and there are other moves that we should be focusing on other than getting Dame. Personally,
Um, you're absolutely right. This is a waste of time because for you to make a deal for Damian Lillard, not only you have to give up almost your entire team, or vice versa, you have to give up
just
Siakam,
salary wise, like
right?
that's what you have to do.
Or Siakam and maybe something else. Either way, what you were saying is that Damian Lillard be on your roster, being the best player arguably on your roster. And last time I checked, for the last 10 years, that ain't worked out so well in the Pacific Northwest. So I don't know why you think that's going to work out in Toronto now. So that to me is like you're just shuffling up. You're shuffling up the deck. It's like the same thing.
Yeah, and then like for the people that are like Scotty Barnes, truthers or whatever, which again, people, I'm a huge fan of Scotty Barnes. I am just like I keep saying I would love to see him and Siakam be that dynamic duo. But anyways, I don't see how that helps him. And then if you're Dame, people are suggesting, oh well, we'll just trade Siakam for Dame. Oh, okay.
Who you
Uh,
really want to play with?
that's exact. I was talking to someone earlier, and I said that exact. I posed that question. I was like, "Who do you think that Dame wants to play for?" Considering his recent comments about young players,
Right.
I personally don't know. I know people are like, "Well, I think he could work with Barnes." That wasn't the question. Who does he
And
want to play with?
this kind of goes full circle to what we discussed at the beginning, talking about the media and the fandom.
Yeah, the players. I'm not saying that Van Vliet isn't respected as a player. He
Right, yeah, I guess
is.
you go where I want to go, right? Exactly.
Yes, yes. He because Van Vliet is respected as a player a lot for sure. But Siakam, oh, your favorite player. It's just like Jokic has said, I want to play with Siakam.
Hey,
Dame has hinted at it as well as OG. It's like,
KD,
yeah, KD. He's like, they he both said that if he goes there, it would be to play with them, and then also on his way out the door, he tried to get Siakam. So it's like at some point, people, I think we have to maybe realize and trust that, like, instead of like the people that were arguing with KD on his space and trying to talk to him about, I don't know, rim penetration and stuff like that, to maybe that like KD actually might like he has his issues as a number one guy trying to win a championship right now, sure, but KD kind of probably knows a little bit of basketball,
you saw
just a
what
little bit.
Draymond was gushing. Like,
Even Draymond, it's like every single dude, even Joel Embiid, who people think that they have beef. He's just like, that's my guy. Giannis,
honest.
Giannis, Giannis as well.
Because it's
So at
also
some
like, come on, guys. Like, I mean, like, he's your favorite. He's your favorite player's favorite player, pretty much. In this here.
like literally like the MVPs are like, I want him.
Yeah. And yet somehow, as I said before, the inverse, the fandom and the media are like, well, I'm not sure. It's like, yet when you go outside of this bubble, it's like folks saying, yo, man, Siakam's like the truth in this case here. I don't understand. And they said before, Fred is the inverted thing in this case here. It's like, oh my gosh, we can't do without Fred in this case here. And you go outside the bubble of Toronto, and everyone's like, you paid how much for Fred?
Yeah,
like
like immediately there was a fan, a Rockets fan that we were chatting with, and his immediate question was like, "What am I getting?" Like it's like I just want to make sure and blah blah blah. And so it's interesting, and that's not to put shade on one player or another, but quite the opposite. I'm trying to like raise certain guys up.
the perceptions are fascinating in this case here when it comes to certain players on this team.
Yeah, it really is. I think people are slowly getting wise. I think this year will tell a lot. I think the other thing too is that in terms of the play style last year, people keep saying Siakam this, Siakam that. I don't think he really benefited from the play style.
Oh, no.
I don't think he benefited from Pirtle being here. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it just demonstrates that. Um, there's other guys. I mean, we don't even have the time to get into that, but it's like there's guys that the second that Fred packed his bags, you have another dude over, in the corner saying, "Hey, by the way, I want my touches now."
Yeah, so we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that with Coach. So, but with that being said, people, I know this is a little bit different. We're kind of talking about a little bit of the rumor mill and what to do next. We didn't get fully into what to do next, but I think that yes, we need to shore up some depth, basically, probably for some guards. But I do like the moves. We got another shooter, which is great. We got another guy that can do some stuff. And I think I think that Masai did something that wasn't the greatest, but then he that team seems to have kind of at least course corrected, giving me some hope and some faith. So, with that being said, people, like, comment, subscribe if you like this. And someone was asking me for the audio. Listen, when I get enough subscribers, I'll put it on audio. So until then, I'm not giving myself extra work. So with that being said, it's been fun. It's been great. And take care and peace.
Peace.